A grave omen is here. No, literally. Emu shooting fireballs that also heal his allies and slaughter all his enemies, called Omen, and I don't really know how Loki, Luffy, or really anyone else on the island right now is gonna have any chance of dealing with that. Especially after looking into it and finding out that it may be tied to some insane special HAKI stuff, and the fact that, it's pretty much confirmed that Emu is a Lunarian. We're gonna cover everything from this chapter today, from the Omen flames to Emu's wings and the insane potential of Emu against Loki. But real quick first, I do need to talk about the run that Emu is on first here. Emu's hands are rated E for everyone. So, the devil has finally surfaced in One Piece, and like we all hoped, I think, Emu is absolutely stomping everyone and anyone in his path. Just the way it should be. Zoro, Sanji, Giants, you name it, he's making them all look like a bunch of toddlers fighting a full-grown adult, like a classic Ohara family gathering situation, basically. And it's pretty clear that Oda is using Elbaf as a means to really show us the big gap between Luffy and the other top tiers versus, well, the top tier in the verse, and I'm very happy that there does seem to be indeed a gap. Emu is very clearly being framed as overwhelming in a way truly unlike any other character we've seen in the story so far. Just because, early in the series, figures like Enel and even Croc or Kizaru, they did have these big gaps, but that's because the crew was still very much inexperienced and very much rookies on the Grand Line. Comparatively, they are super skilled right now and look like absolute dirt compared to Emu. Like, this isn't even a fight. It's a demonstration of a real god's power and the new benchmark that characters like Loki and Luffy and also Shanks, etc., will actually need to reach, or at least show that they're capable of fighting at with all their combined powers. Because really, and I don't know if this is gonna be like a controversial take, I kind of don't think I want Luffy in the story to individually just reach Emu tier power. I think that the series would more benefit from Emu being just the undeniable top tier, even if he's defeated by everyone as a collective before the series ends. I'm not saying that, getting a crazy version of Luffy that's crazy power boosted to the max at some point wouldn't be cool. And I do guess there's an argument to be made here that Luffy has done that before, where he's willing to sacrifice his lifespan, or even, in that case, probably his life altogether, for one final crazy attack. But I still think it should be more of a Kaido situation where you need every top tier character in the story chipping away at Emu for Luffy, for Luffy's all-out final crazy attack to even ever have a chance of landing. Does that make sense? We can still get a crazy, super broken Luffy Sun God moment and still have it not be Luffy just fighting full strength against Emu full strength and coming out on top. That makes sense, right? But honestly, seriously, it's kind of nuts that none of the Straw Hats are actually able to even hold a candle to Emu right now. He just casually tail bitch slaps Zoro using a top tier attack here, by the way, the return of his King of Hell Onigiri, and then he uses his own Black Flame Kick to make Sanji look like chopped liver. Black Leg Sanji, my butt, dude. This is Black Leg Emu going absolute psycho mode, and he's not even trying, it seems. Emu is just actually so nonchalant disrespectful here. I am absolutely here for it, except for what he did to Gert. Dude, poor Gert. Her fingers really didn't deserve that. That's in fact not what they meant by getting a girl's digits move, but yeah. Honestly, the tone feels very similar to Kaido versus early Wano Luffy, or even Kizaru, and I actually didn't realize how much I missed such an effortless domination of the crew. Personally, and I assume you feel the same way, I was kind of getting a little bit worried that Gear 5 was just getting way too busted at this point, but thank goodness Oda has been saving literal Satan this entire time for just this occasion. Even in a post-Gear 5 world, Luffy is still nothing close to ready for this abyssal smoke. And something that really makes that clear, I think, is just how Emu is fighting here. He doesn't do anything crazy, if we're being honest. He's not exploding the entire atom tree, branches willy-nilly or something. He doesn't go all out crazy laser beam, no. It's all very casual and ultra precise. Tiny little flicked fireballs, minimal body movement, insane speed if he wants to, and Emu just being super deliberate, kind of like not wasting any energy basically. That might be on purpose, obviously. We saw him coughing up the blood and stuff. But I do wonder if that's just to show how strong he is, or again, if that is part of the whole bleeding from the inside out thing that we witnessed in the last chapter 1179, and he, like, basically needs to hold back and is just going at 1% to not deal too much damage to this form. Like, I would definitely be willing to accept here that Imu's trying really hard to just actually, like, end this super quickly and efficiently and fast with minimal effort, and then just get out of dodge because his body isn't a big fan of whatever's going on here.
What is going on here? Breakfast!
Now, in case you were wondering, yes, I'm still very much a big fan of the idea that this is not Imu's real body, but instead it's a war body that he's actually just piloting. Specifically, the idea that this is actually Nika's body still feels super cool and also on brand very much for Big Mu. After all, just a reminder, it's got the white hair, the spear, very similar powers to Luffy, and we already know that Imu is all about that sneaky body possession and taking control of his enemies. And now that we're getting even more hints that at the very least this body belonged to a Lunarian, well, I do think that Nika is absolutely still on the table. But, you know, either way works for me. It would be very cool if this is Nika. If this is just Imu, also cool, though again, I feel like lore-wise a little bit confusing. And actually, speaking of all of that Lunarian stuff, it's definitely one of the biggest reveals from this chapter, besides, of course, Imu's Omen Flames. So let's talk about that part next. The Mu-Narian. I gotta say, I'm like genuinely surprised that Oda just like dropped the Imu wing design so quickly here, mostly because after the weird little transformation sequence from 1179 here, it kind of felt like the wings were supposed to be a subtle hint that paid off in like a couple of months or years, not just right now in the next chapter. But yeah, the truth is, Imu does have giant black angel wings, just like the Lunarians. Which hopefully I shouldn't have to tell you is just a massive deal because it's kind of starting to help unravel some of the key parts of the ancient history. By the way, I quickly wanted to point out, for some reason in my brain it wasn't super obvious to me just how giant King is himself. Like in my head he was just like a little bit bigger than a human, but then he's actually just towering over Zoro. So yeah, kind of forgot about that. But yeah, they both use flame-based abilities. They have a flame behind their heads, and obviously they have the black wings. Even the dots, which are this weird part of Imu's design, these little tattoos all over his body, they are also part of King's design. I mean, all over his leathers or latex or whatever he's rocking there, like we're not king shaming, right? He's full of these little buttons and dots too. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear that in some way, this design is supposed to mirror or literally be a Lunarian. But before I get into what that actually might mean, I do have a little side note here. After finally seeing Imu fix his posture and ditch his edgy Itachi pose, as cool as that was, it's pretty clear that his design is also pretty similar to, again, Usopp's Elbaf design for some reason, like same striped pants and the same horn shape. I think that the angle that we got in chapter 1179 made that a little bit harder to tell, but these horns are just like Usopp's horns on his helmet on Elbaf. Like, Oda, you sly dog, giving us God Usopp in the image of the devil. I see you. I see what you're doing. All right, back to the Mu-Narian here. This raises, of course, another massive question. It actually raises two. How and why? Because after really spending some time to think about it, I've come to three possible conclusions here. Either Imu's a corrupted, or probably as he would see it, ascended Lunarian. You know, the Lunarians created Imu, or as I've already mentioned, this is not even Imu's body to begin with, but instead the body of a Lunarian, likely the sun god Nika. And I really hate to say it, not really, that I may have kind of nailed the idea in my previous Void Century story video. It was supposed to just be a little, like, story of my headcanon, surmising from details throughout the series, but I actually somehow think it may have actually been way closer to the reality than I realized, but just mixed up or combined some details in ways that, you know, I wouldn't have known not to. Also, just to be clear here, I'm not certain of any of this, and I'm probably informed by my own biases here, but that's why we're here, right? To discuss our ideas and agendas, even if the end result is different or incorrect, but that's the beauty of it all. Now I realize you may not have actually seen that video, even though it was really cool. We had a lot of custom art and stuff, so let me share what I proposed in it. In that video, which again was like the story-style Christmas video we made, I suggested that Imu was a ruler of an island, part of the 20 Kings, who stood up against Davy D. Jones's ancient kingdom. I also proposed that the Lu-Narians created the Abyss as some advanced technology and bound it to Emu so that they could destroy Davy Jones, who was a fallen Lu-Narian stripped of his wings. And now, with these last 2 chapters, I do think maybe these ideas weren't too far off the mark, like, not correct, but there was maybe something there. Because it could just be that both of these roles just straight up belonged to Emu, depending on whether it is his actual body or not. Saint Nerona Emu may actually be a Lu-Narian who was cast out from the Red Line, the original Holy Land of the Lu-Narians, and then founded whatever island or kingdom the Nerona family ruled down on the Blue Sea. And I think that this might actually be what happened also because of Emu's name. You've probably heard this, but it's been very widely believed that Nerona, Emu's family name, is based on the Roman Emperor Nero, right? He was notorious for initiating a fire that burned down half his country, Rome, or like the city Rome, right? So that he could rebuild it in his own image. He then blamed it all on the Christians, who he then mercilessly persecuted. He's also known to have killed his mother and his wives. So what we got here is the war, the burning down cities, and the potential family murder. And that definitely lines up with the story that I'm running with. Emu, a Lu-Narian, goes home, burns down the kingdom that he was born in, potentially including his entire family, and then ascends back to the Red Line and builds it into Morijua, blaming it all on the D-Clan, who seems to also be tied to the sun god, whom Kuma seems to worship and use a lot of Christian iconography for. But I'm not done yet, because I do also think that based on Emu's full design now, his weird habits, and this firepower, I've kind of figured out the other part of Emu's name too, because it's not just Nero, it's the word Corona. Nero plus Corona is Nerona. Now, why does Corona come into play here? Do I think that Emu was the one to blame for 2020? Well, actually, outside of being also a very nice beverage, Corona is the crown or halo that surrounds the actual sun. It's a halo ring, much like the floating ring of fire behind Emu's back, where his Lu-Narian flame should actually be, and it's also the Latin word for crown, which is like one of the only prominent parts of Shadow Emu's design. Also, a corona is a key part of flowers, it turns out. Yeah, that's right. Inside flower petals is a protective layer surrounding the pollen known as the corona. And this is of course also super relevant to Emu in particular, because homeboy literally hangs out in his flower room all the time. And in case you're behind on your botany, turns out that fruits are also parts of a flower. Ha! If only there was like some sort of connection between Emu and flowers and fruits. Ah, right. Devil fruits. You see it, right? Flowers, fire powers, fire flowers, the Mario movie, it's all connected, man. Sorry, I just saw the Mario Galaxy movie and got my points mixed up a little bit, but you get it, right? Sun, flowers, Corona, Nerona, there's gotta be something here, I think. And that right there is the smoking gun for me, because it does work regardless whether Emu is a Lu-Narian or if the Nerona clan was created after Emu possessed Nika's old body. Either the Lu-Narians are descendants and connected to Nika, which could make Emu being a Lu-Narian super ironic because he would be the descendant of Nika while Luffy is the real inheritor of his will, or Emu is using Nika's body, a Lu-Narian, which means that Nika is the one tied to the Corona and the sun as the sun god, and that's why Emu's clan name is Nerona. And this might actually also tie into Emu's end goal here, because the Corona of the sun is iconically visible during a solar eclipse. Also, the most recent moon mission took this very cool photo from behind the dark side of the moon, where you can also see the Corona of the sun, which actually recently proposed could be what Emu is waiting to happen. An eclipse. You know, tying into the idea that Roger was too early and maybe the One Piece itself can only be activated or found or used in tandem with a solar eclipse. Like, the moment that the moon blocks out the sun, which would be also super relevant if Emu is a Lu-Narian or is using a Lu-Narian body, since, you know, lunar, Lu-Narian, it's right there for you. Actually, now that I think about it, a little bit of a detour here, but after talking about the eclipse, it's kind of crazy to think that I've never associated the forbidden sun itself with the eclipse, because could it be that it's forbidden because, like, it only happens on like a certain occasion? Like, is the eclipse itself the forbidden sun? That'd be pretty cool. It's actually not the forbidden sun, but when the sun is forbidden. I actually, let me very quickly look up what the mural says actually in the original. All right, so I looked it up. The word that the Japanese actually uses is kindan, which means the forbidden thing, like to be prohibited, to be forbidden. So I don't know, it could work for an eclipse. It's not like super crazy. But what I also found is that there is a set phrase called kindan no konomi, which is quite literally the forbidden fruit. Well, that's kind of cool. That kind of ties the forbidden sun to the forbidden fruit from the Bible. Obviously devil fruit, so there's something going on here. Anyways, back to the video. I also proposed in my Void Century video back then that the Lunarians may not have always had black wings and that they were actually stained black or scorched by the burning flames of the forbidden sun, and I do think that that might actually be fairly relevant here as well. Since, you know, it would tie really well into the fact that the Lunarians have these flames and black wings, that might be a result of them getting too greedy and trying to harness a forbidden divine power that they were not supposed to play with. Because when you think about it, we don't see any black angel wing iconography on any of the murals, the one on the moon with Enel, where the other 3 sky races are depicted, or even the main mural on Elbaf, until what seems to be the second world on the left side fighting along Joy Boy. On the right side of the mural, which again, at least in my mind, is usually tied to the first world, there are white-winged angels, no black-winged ones. So theoretically, at least, this could be used as a point for Imu being a Lunarian, as he could be one of the angels scorched by the forbidden sun, or maybe even the one who let that push to abuse the power of the Earth's core or whatever it may be, and that's what caused him to be banished or exiled by his clan, you know, until he then later came back to the Red Line and took it over using the abyssal powers he got going on as well. It's kind of like the classic Lucifer thing, the angels rebelling against God, doing something they're not supposed to be, and then being banished from heaven, becoming the devil. Also, speaking of, as is the case for any time I get more hints at Imu being just Lucifer, I do must say that Omen definitely is giving off that Hellflame satanic vibe, right? Like, with all of the deals and pacts, the black corona behind him being his crown and the black wings, Imu being Lucifer definitely feels very much on brand. The idea that he was the rebellious and fallen angel of the Lunarians definitely feels like the direction Oda is taking things here. Maybe that was a result of him getting greedy and tapping into the Forbidden Sun. Mika may have been the leader of the Lunarians that maybe even punished Imu for his own greed, and that explains the legacy of hatred and vengeance that they seem to be on right now. The moment that they've been waiting for is now coming. They will finally stomp out their old king's will after Imu crushes Luffy. Also, speaking of waiting for an event to finally happen, you know what that is usually foreshadowed by? An omen! And I do want to finally now talk about Imu's new power reveal, Omen, since it's kind of like the talk of the town. Probably, I don't know, I record these before I check the socials. I really hope they're the talk of the town though. The Good and Bad Omens. The Good and Bad Omens. So, what's the deal with the Omen Flame? Well, let's start by covering the hard factoids here. Imu's Omen is a small, controlled black flame that Loki sometimes has a little face and mouth that's kind of honestly adorable. So far, it is not a wild, destructive blast, it's crazy precise actually. It's actually written as Maki when broken down into kanji, aka the demon spirit or devil's will, and that alone brings a whole new context that I'll get into. You probably know the Ma part because that's usually from like Mao or Akuma, right? That's that kanji that means devil or demon, and then Ki is the same one as used in HAKI, right? Spirit, willpower, or in this case, the devil's will. So Omen has the ability to both heal allies and annihilate enemies, implying that it has a dual nature. And a specific aspect of the healing is that when healing, Omen creates a black flame halo above the target's head, kind of similar to Big Moose, but without all the sexy little eyeballs. Imu also seems to shoot it from their palms, which are accompanied by specific hand poses, which definitely kind of reminds me of like JJK and Naruto, which are both You know, of course, inspired by Buddhist and Hindu mudras. Specifically, the pose where the thumb touches the index finger that Imu uses to unleash the omen is the Vitarka, which, in case you're curious, specifically represents the transfer of wisdom or directing the mind towards an object. A very clever pull from Oda, since Imu is definitely the wise god above all others. I actually touched on this in my recent Imu and Mu might be separate figures video here, where it seems like Mu could also be a reference to a specific part of Greek philosophy presented by Plato. The wise god, aware of the world's truths, is on the top of the world, and he uses his divine wisdom through omen to attack others. It's actually kind of metal. I kind of dig it. It also seems to imply an aspect of ritual to Imu's combat style, which definitely lines up because Imu is surrounded by ritual. Pentagrams, the abyssal covenants, all the prayer and praise that his subjects give him. It's very ritualistic in nature, and it kind of makes me wonder if omen can only be used through this hand pose, which could serve as some sort of weakness for it as well. Now, technically, with that in mind, I'm not entirely certain that the moment that Imu transforms his spear into a gun spear and frees Gunko from Ragnir's ice is actually omen at all, since it doesn't have the hand sign, but the jury is still very much out on that one, like currently at least. Alright, but that's all good and nice. What's up with the naming, right? Why omen specifically? To me, at the very least, it seems it's because of the dual nature of the attack and the halos surrounding it. An omen is defined as a phenomenon, event, or sign believed to foretell or warn of a future occurrence, indicating either good or bad fortune. Often interpreted as a divine message or supernatural warning, it acts as a precursor to change, such as natural events, animal behaviors, or coincidental occurrences viewed as prophetic. What a cool definition. Now this works pretty well because I'm gonna safely assume that Imu has some bonkers future sight, and omen being tied to that makes a ton of sense. Omen may actually be very similar to Gunko's arrows, which seem to ensure that they hit the target by directing the future itself, or at least that's how it was explained by Oda. Now the bad omen side of the move, the one used to make Zoro look like Luso, could be a guaranteed hit attack too. It's Imu seeing his attack will absolutely hit and calling out the bad omen. It may also only be an omen because of the ritual. And here's a fun idea. I actually think that there's a legit chance that Imu is literally infusing his future sight into his flame so that it hits. I don't really think it's that crazy of an idea, since we do know that HAKI in all other forms is very much infusible in all sorts of fun and weird ways. So the omen attack, which already has this like homie being alive type of vibe to it, that having an aspect of infused observation HAKI would be an absolutely sick reveal, and what a great way to use observation HAKI to infuse other objects with. Now on the flip side, there is also a good omen, a sign of prosperity and health, which manifests in Imu's ability to heal and straight up revive people. I kind of wonder if it's limited to only the Covenant wielders like the Holy Knights, or if Imu can just actually heal anyone. And I also wonder if omen is tied to an advanced form of observation HAKI, and that's why the Imu eyes look that way that they do, right? Like, could it be as simple as omen's advanced observation makes the eyes do weird circles? Zunisha, Mihawk, hell, even Biblo the Owl, are they just top tier future sight users, and that's why their eyeballs get like all Halo ringy Rinnegan style? Maybe, I don't know. Speaking of halos, obviously we've got to talk about those shadowy halos accompanied by the omen altogether, since these are also a huge topic of discussion. Probably, again, I wouldn't know. Healing halos strongly imply a sort of, angelic connection, holy and heavenly. Once again, it could be Nika related, or could hint that Imu's got a weird devil and angel thing going on here, since on paper, this directly clashes with the rest of Imu's entire devil vibe. I kind of wonder if this means that somehow, some way, Imu controls both heaven and hell style powers, right? Can he really be my angel or my devil? I also quickly want to shout out my friend Tekking, because these halos are extra interesting after he pointed out to me that the figures on the right side of the murals, the one descending into the planet's core, come out with halos on top of them. So it really does make it seem like the power of the Forbidden Sun is associated with these halos, but in the mural they're white. So what's up with that? What's going on? Well, that leads me to one of my biggest points of the day, probably the nature of the Omen, Imu's Dark Fire, and the Abyss. Because I feel really confident saying that Imu's dark shadowy powers and likely the Abyss itself are a corrupted version of the eternal pure flame that it originally was. Maybe you were already thinking along those lines anyways, but it all just lines up so well with what Imu's whole shtick really is, right? He's trying to recreate the eternal flame, the mother flame, and I do think that that's because he got a little bit, carried away during the Void Century, and the eternal flame that he uses on the left side of the mural no longer works like it's supposed to. The nature of the dark and evil flames really feels like, corruption or even burned out, like Imu exhausted his own flames, or the flood that covered the world ruined his eternal flame, and now it's all edgy and black and twisted. I actually think that this also makes sense because the place a Lunarian's bright orange flame is supposed to be is missing and replaced with that dark, evil, flaming eyeball halo. So I would actually argue that clearly the Abyss is not the power Imu really wants, since he's trying to recreate the mother flame, and it kind of feels like maybe the Abyss itself is impacted by his so-called Maki, his demon spirit or devil spirit. And that concept by itself is also so interesting, especially because Skopper Gaban, my man, has never felt it before. It seems to be something completely different from even the energy that Imu gave off on God Valley, which actually makes it seem like those massive HAKI bursts that Imu uses on God Valley and then even earlier on Elbaf are a result of Imu's vessel's HAKI exploding and not his own. What I read into this is that Imu's presence and spirit energy, right, if you wanted to go that way, which HAKI basically is distinctly unique, not the same as his energy that he has when he inhabits one of his vessels. So could it be that there is literally an evil HAKI in the form of Omen? Or maybe it's a primordial, raw version of HAKI from the first world that later was taught to mortals, and that's what we now know as HAKI. Maybe Maki is just like abyssal enhanced HAKI. Like, there's still not enough to say so, but regardless of what it is, it's an insane turn of events and revealed by Oda. It even really makes you wonder if Blackbeard, Shanks, Loki, or obviously eventually Luffy will also be able to tap into Omen and Maki. After all, they are from the D clan, the Devil clan, so who knows? Thinking about it, actually that could kind of be wild if Imu not only is a Lunarian, but also hates the Lunarians and the D clan members because he's one himself and he doesn't want any other Lunarians with their Omen HAKI running around, and so that's why the D clan is so evil, because they potentially have, the option to learn Devil HAKI as well. I don't know. Could we actually get Ultra Instinct Omen Luffy? Oda, I know you love Toriyama's work, but this could be a little bit too far, maybe. I'm also very curious if Omen has some other abilities that we haven't seen yet, like perhaps, perchance, the ability to, I don't know, revive the dead? Is that what Imu maybe meant when he asked for Elbaf's king? Is his actual goal to find Harold's body and revive him again with his Omen? That would be brutal, but it definitely fits with Imu's shadow vibes, very similar to how Gecko Moria revives corpses with shadows. Could it be that Imu intends to, slay Loki and then use his HAKI or Omen to revive Harold? That'd be truly something else, man. I actually kind of love this idea, especially because it could explain by far the weirdest line in this chapter, which is the moment where Imu asks where Elbaf's king is. Huh? Why would Imu ask that? Also, speaking of looking for my king, buddy, I've been looking for you all over. I expected to find you over at the Ohara Patreon getting all the exclusive content and early chapter reactions, but I didn't see you there. Did you get lost? No worries, I got you. Just click the link in the description below. You'll love it, and, I really appreciate your support. You're a king. Imu? You good, buddy? No, seriously though, why is Imu looking for a king he should know isn't here? It literally makes zero sense to me that Imu is looking for the king of Elbaf when he knows Harold is dead. He knows Jarul is in charge as the chief, and he literally appointed Dorian Bragi to be his acting kings because, for some reason, Elbaf needs a king, it seems. Like, is this something to do with all the ritualistic stuff I was talking about, where, like, in order to be part of the world government and rule under Imu, a nation needs a monarch? That would explain why he led a coalition of 20 kings, at the very least. But that still doesn't answer the question, right? He knows there is no king right now, so why should he be asking for one? Also, Imu seems to be pretty oddly confused or unaware of what's going on with Summers, Gunko, and Killingham. Like, this also feels a little bit off, no? Like, he should know, because he was on Elbaf through Gunko, but he doesn't? Imu, do you have some memory issues, or is there like a stipulation here with your possession that's being revealed? That's kind of weird. I kind of feel like there might be a chance that Imu might not actually like remember everything from the perspective of his vessels. Like, maybe when he possesses a body, it's not that he's piloting it, but instead, you know, part of his consciousness is going there and taking over from the contract. And like, maybe that part of himself that he bestowed on the vessel is wielding the body, but all those memories still belong to the body, not Imu. So in the moment, he's possessing Gunko as Imu, but when Imu's kicked out of Gunko's body, he no longer has the memories of that fight? Or is it just a part of Imu that stirs inside of Gunko, and Imu was like the real Imu was not even connected to that in like some way, shape, or form? I mean, it definitely works with Imu going to Elbaf, mostly because he just wants to see what actually happened that kicked him out of Gunko's body. It actually also might explain why he always refers to people by their old names or people that they look like. Maybe he's tapping into memories of the wielder, and that's why he uses old names when people look like others. Calling Zebek Davy Jones stuck out to me during God Valley because, you know, like, he had met Zebek in person, but then maybe Saturn never met Zebek, so he thinks it's Davy. I don't know, probably not. It's just kind of weird. If you have a good idea, please let me know in the comments. Or, like Loki, the dude might just be losing his mind because he's so old and tapped into a demonic ancient power source. Or maybe his consciousness is a little bit fractured because of all the covenants he's got going on. Or it could feed into the idea I pitched a while ago that Mu and Imu are different beings but in the same body, and maybe most like right now it's Mu-Narian, but then when they're possessing someone, it's actually Mu that's in full control. Or maybe he can only read the HAKI and it's similar, like something is up for sure, I just really can't place my finger on it. Regardless though, maybe we'll get more info in the Imu versus Loki deathmatch that's about to happen, so let's talk about that next. Imu versus Loki at MONSTERJAM this Sunday. Poor Ragnar is about to get manhandled 3 ways from Sunday by Imu after the reveal of his Omen Flame power. Melting the supposedly unmeltable ice that our squirrel buddy extra went through all the effort of creating, and as Loki said, Ragnar's ice isn't just ice, it's been framed very intentionally as being unbreakable. And then Imu arrives and just melts it like butter on toast, which makes me wonder if that's because the Omen is restoring its heat energy because it's the tainted forbidden sun. Is it him restoring the property of heat, melting it, or like conceptually healing it through the healing side of Omen? I have no idea, but I like to think that it's because Evil Sun is very hot and warms up like ice real good. Something like that. Regardless of the details, it does mean that Loki is going to be severely weakened in their clash because his little buddy is just hammer now and not powerful ice hammer, basically. However, on the other hand, we do know that his Nidhogg powers do seem to really mess with the Abyss, so maybe he'll be fine and we'll get the sick reveal of Devil Mu versus hybrid Nidhogg Loki. God, I really hope so, dude. I want to see Loki's hybrid form so badly. Kaido's a top tier design, and after seeing Nidhogg, I do feel like Loki's is just gonna absolutely rip. And seeing as Loki uses cool lightning and Imu uses abyssal fire, well, I'm pretty sure I know the end result of this mythological clash because, let's be real for a moment, there is no way that Elbaf survives this fight, right? I'm pretty sure the owl realized that and shrunk all the library books to leave because this fight is about to go real badly fast. Remember how, Oda emphasized that fire and lightning are Elbaf's two biggest weaknesses, and these two bad boys use both of them. There's really no greater omen than this one, if you ask me. These two god-tier fighters are likely going to burn down the Atom Tree, and that's not gonna be good for, well, everyone who lives on it. Especially characters like Lilith, Kuma, or Bonnie. All these people are not part of the fight, they're just kind of there, doing their own thing, I guess. I do worry for them because those poor guys, they just wanted to hang out here and chill after Eket, and suddenly literal Satan appeared and he's fighting a giant dragon the size of an entire country. I'm also just so curious to see how Emu and Luffy are gonna interact because it's becoming increasingly clear that Emu is the direct opposite of Luffy in so many ways, and I hate to admit it, but Luffy is not the one on top here. Actually, I lied, I love to admit it. I love having stakes in the stories again, and I really wonder if learning to use Omen is gonna be like Luffy's next big, power-up thing that might happen. Or maybe he'll get a sword, or his own version of Domi Reversi, like that'd be rad as well. Really, it's just obvious at this point that the whole crew needs some upgrades absolutely desperately, and I do think I know what they will be. You can check out this video here to learn all about that, since I do think Zoro's and Frankie's especially are gonna be kind of awesome. With that though, thanks for watching, thanks to all of our fantastic Patreons. We have a really weird video on Tuesday that's gonna be tied into what might actually be happening here on Elbaf. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.